Well, happy Mother's Day. In my mom's honor, I'm wearing her jacket and her bracelet. And I know several of you have shared with me that you're wearing something of your mom's too. So, happy Mother's Day. Although we celebrate Mother's Day in the church, it's not a religious holiday. There's no commandment that states, "Thou shalt celebrate Mom on the second Sunday in May with flowers and cards, and thou shalt attend church as a family." Although we should consider it because maybe that would boost our attendance, I don't know. My wife is with her mom in church on Mother's Day. Well, despite capitalism and advertising, there's no parable in which Jesus tells the disciples, "Thou shalt take your mother out to eat and buy her something pretty in the 5th month of every year." Hallmark, Kay Jewelers, and Ruby Tuesdays would like us to believe that Mother's Day is ordained by God since the beginning of time. But it's only been an official holiday since 1917. Anna Jarvis is the founder of Mother's Day, and she started the holiday to pay tribute to her own mother. The official flower of Mother's Day is the white carnation, which Ms. Jarvis chose because, of course, it was her mother's favorite flower. She said, "The carnation does not drop its petals when it dies. Instead, it hugs them to its heart, just as mothers hug their children to their hearts, their mother's love never dying." It seems like Tabitha's love was the same way. This is a wonderful story to hear on Mother's Day, on a day when we celebrate women. And I always love to hear about strong women in the Bible. In a Bible where not many women even have names, Tabitha is called by 2 names. Tabitha is her name in Aramaic, and Dorcas is her name in Greek. So, from this, we can surmise that she was a Greek-speaking Jew. We also can tell that she was probably a wealthy woman. She had time and resources to take care of people in need, the widows. Also significant is that Tabitha is the only woman described as a disciple in the entire New Testament. Now, that doesn't mean that there were not other women disciples. It's just not recorded. We can also assume that Tabitha is independent because she's not defined by male relationships like the mother of this son, the daughter of this father, or the wife of this husband. She is Tabitha, a disciple, devoted to good works and charity. And the imperfect tense of that verb used here in Greek means that she is continually doing good works. This photograph is a Dorcas gazelle. The name Dorcas and Tabitha mean gazelle. Gazelles are small and graceful and fast. They can run 60 miles an hour. So I imagine that Tabitha shares those traits of her namesake, grace and speed. She must have been fast to sew all those tunics for all the widows. Tabitha must have done so much for those widows in need because the text tells us that they were weeping after her death. It seems that she made a big difference in their lives. Tabitha can be a role model for us today. For us disciples, we can be like Tabitha. Not that we all need to sew, but we can all strive to make a difference in the world. And from what we read in the book of Acts, Tabitha did make a difference in the lives of many. But that is not the end of the story. When she dies, they send for Peter, who happened to be nearby. And when he gets there, he sends everybody out of the room and he prays. And then he says, "Tabitha, get up." And she does. Peter brings her back to life. He takes her hand and helps her up and shows everyone she is alive. Out of death comes new life. Now, this should sound familiar to you. I mean, Easter is the season of new life, but we're reminded of the story of Lazarus, whom Jesus brought back to life. And we also remember when Jesus raised Jairus' daughter. Do you remember that story? The miracle of the synagogue leader's daughter being brought back to life is in Matthew, Mark, and Luke. And Peter was there. This miracle parallels the miracle of Jairus' daughter. And that would be obvious to us if we were hearing this story in Aramaic or Hebrew, because in the story of Jairus' daughter, Jesus says, "Talitha cum," which means, "Little girl, get up." And that sounds a lot like what Peter just said, "Tabitha cum," Tabitha, get up. Well, on this fourth Sunday of Easter, we again focus on life out of death. I read a beautiful commentary by Walter Brueggemann, who's a famous theologian and preacher. And I actually saw him when I was at the Festival of Homiletics a few years ago, and I'm leaving today for the Festival of Homiletics. I don't think he's going to be there. He's in his 90s now, but it was very exciting. So I read this commentary, and he said that Peter embodies the church in this story. You might remember that the book of Acts tells the story of the birth of the church. Remember that in Acts 2? We'll hear more about it later on. But that was the story of the birth of the church. But Brueggemann says that the church is entrusted with the power to create new life. He says it's no wonder in the book of Acts that the church is always getting in trouble before the imperial authority, for the capacity to bring life out of death threatens every status quo. Imperial authority, the Roman Empire, any empire, authoritarianism. You know, lately, when we read about the struggles with imperial Rome, authoritarianism feels closer than ever in these days. We watch the news, and we see how our own democracy is at risk. The menace of authoritarianism is threatening our freedoms and civil liberties today. Injustice, hate, violence, and greed, all for the sake of power and wealth for a few. Those forces are everywhere. Just last week, the mayor of Newark, New Jersey, was arrested outside an ICE facility. Did you hear about that? He was there for a press conference. The congressional representatives of the state were holding a press conference because, you see, Congress has oversight of ICE detention centers. So legally, they can show up anytime, unannounced, to make sure that the conditions are adequate and that people are being treated fairly. So the Congress people were there exercising their duty. There were also protesters gathered there for justice. But all of a sudden, these masked, armed ICE agents showed up to arrest the mayor right there. Two of the congresswomen immediately wrapped their arms around the mayor to protect him from these armed agents. And some of the protesters tried to, too. The video was so chaotic that one of the congresswomen said, "We are both mothers, and we moved into action to protect the mayor." He was still arrested, and he was held for hours. On Mother's Day, let us remember that mothers protect their children. On this day, when we celebrate a parent's love and care, let us remember that parents protect the future for the next generation. And here's the thing, we are all parents of the next generation. Beloved church, remember, listen to this call. In a world full of hardship and brokenness and violence and grief and struggle, we are entrusted with the power to bring new life. That's a pretty bold statement. We, the church, are entrusted with the power to bring new life. What about the times when we don't feel like we can? What about the times when it all feels like too much? I admit that there are times when sadness and hopelessness and fear make it difficult for me to even get up in the morning. I want to pull the covers over my head. And then I hear, "Tabitha, get up. Karen, Elise, get up." The church is entrusted with the power to create new life. Do you hear that, disciples? Do you hear that? That is who we are. Hope United Church of Christ creates new life. We are entrusted with the power to create new life. So may we take each other's hand and help each other up. We are alive. Get up. Tell somebody next to you. Go ahead, call them by name and tell them, get up. Betty, get up. Let me hear it. Get up. Get up. Get up. Amen.